There we go. And we're live. Welcome, everybody. This is the Reality Czars podcast, and I'm your only host tonight, Nate. Dude, I'm honored and privileged. I'm talking to Beyond Top Secret Texan. Thank you, brother, for coming on. This is part 3. And you were just explaining a little bit that this is like something that you used to touch on back in the day, and that you've kind of moved away from a little bit of this stuff. And we might be one of the last ones you do. So I'm really excited to talk about this particular topic we're talking about. So we're talking about like secret societies / like the Gnosis, Gnostic, deep occult knowledge, and maybe how it ties into all of this crazy shit. That sounds awesome, and I love it. So
yeah, I not only touched on it, built my channel on it, and not only that, but built my research on a lot of that, specifically secret societies, the various belief systems that they hold, what people would call the occult in general, Gnostic learning, teachings, everything from alchemy to Zoroastrianism. And everything in between. People would call it religious studies. People would call it, ancient knowledge. People would call it occult. And it's just an interesting way to start, because everything that we're speaking about now, say, for example, in a Catholic community during the days of the Inquisition, would be considered satanic, would be considered witchcraft, would be considered absolutely, that would be, verboten, taboo to even understand what Hinduism is. So,
what I find so fascinating, man, is like the early roots of Christianity are way more esoteric than people even realize, and how much it was occulted by the Catholic Church and put in a box. And I'm discovering this for myself, and it's wild, dude. It's been a really fun discovery to look
at modern societies. Yeah, you look at modern societies like Islam, Saudi Arabia. What we were talking about right now would get you killed or arrested as a heretic. Any content, or if you had any material on this, it would be considered witchcraft, for example. And this is a real thing in real societies today. And it needs to be known that the Inquisition did not stop. It only ended in countries where people were able to establish basic human rights of religious freedoms, etc. And even then, it's only specifically because of if you want to look at it from real world politics, because we live in a basically a heretical witchcraft society under the Anglosphere British monarchy, which is 100% real. If you just look into anything, like the British Queen is a Druid. She was initiated into the Druid rites, as well as being an Anglican, and her coronation was on the Stone of Jacob, and as it like it all is tied into it. As when you start looking into all these things, like you said, the Gnostic, the occult, quote unquote occult, symbolic references to these fundamental, universal, spiritual concepts becomes more and more apparent as your eyes literally open. And what we have known about in popular society, because we're in a small dark age as it is, getting out of it, is the quote unquote Illuminati, or quote unquote, whatever that means to everybody. Usually pyramids, eyes of providence, which are themselves, Kabbalistic / Christian esoteric, specifically Jehovian, and representations of Jehovah, which is a Old Testament reference to the Christian God, and which in Catholic societies is actually illegal, is actually taboo and considered witchcraft. Like I said before, tie it all together. So even the mention of back then that Jehovah was God, it literally took the centuries of Jewish mystics and the Kabbalistic traditions to literally perform heresies under candlelight and midnight under pain of death if they were ever discovered, to find out the ancient text that it was, JHVH, Jehovah, and that one discovery even though it seems very innocuous, even though it seems very innocent, would have got you burned at the stake if you had told a Catholic priest that the Lord's name was Jehovah, which was, you're trying to, and that's people
That's
don't even realize.
Interesting. When did that come around as like, because I was taught that as a kid. We'd sing songs about Jehovah. Like, when did that become regular, like, accepted?
In America, in America, 100% in America. That was where literally all the quote unquote refugees from the European purges, Protestants after the Huguenots, etc., came over, and they brought all these Gnostic traditions. The Knights Templar had already set
the
up
Rosicrucians, right?
Rosicrucians, the Welsh with their Arthurian mythos, Native Americans also. There are synagogues they've been finding in Wisconsin that are hundreds of years older than even the colonies of the 13 colonies. So the Mormons believe that the 13th tribe, the lost tribe of Israel, sailed to America in arks and set up colonies and basically populated the entire North American continent. This is syncretic, whatever the word I'm looking for is, with, say, the Vikings and their founding of Greenland, Vineland, and then their supposed even founding of the Aztec Empire as the blue-eyed, blonde-haired tribe of Dan. And tribe of Dan is also the Vikings who founded Russia and who are also the Atlanteans, the Scythians, these blonde-haired Nordic sea peoples, but they're not Nordic, they're Israelite who fled Israel.
Have you done any research on this? Like, I was listening to, I think he's some sort of doctor, he's some sort of historian. I was listening to him on a podcast, on an awesome podcast. Shout out to Andreas Exertus, dude. His show is one of the best, dude. Do you ever listen to Andreas Exertus? You should check out his channel, man.
I actually do most of my research through public library stuff. Bill Cooper's
I love Bill Cooper.
Bill Cooper's Mystery School series was very eye-opening. And that's like basically...
I'm about halfway through that. I started getting burnt out, but I'm about halfway through that series right now. It's really good.
It's really good. No, that was a classic. And then I also like mythology, Ancient Mysteries, Mythology 7. That creator, A. Christie, he's a British researcher. He publishes a lot on YouTube about the
send me his channel. Send me his channel after this. I definitely want to check that out. And I'm going to send you this. This blew my fucking mind. Tell me what you think about this. Like, tell me if you've done any research that backs this up or what your thoughts are on this concept. He was basically saying that, like, almost, I don't even want to fucking ruin it. So I'm just going to, like, basically lay out the premise of it, was just that, like, most of Europe and basically all of, like, what we would consider the Middle East and probably North Africa and, like, into Asia, like, they all spoke Arabic. Arabic was the main, like, that was like the trade language, kind of how, like, English is now. You know how, like, almost everybody has to know English, right? And so he was finding, this guy has been, like, looking and finding artifacts that, like, are well before the time of, like, Christ and things like that, like old stuff, like in, like, ancient, like, what would be like Scandinavia-ish areas, like in Denmark and Sweden and stuff, and then all the way in Ireland, like hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, with, like, it would have, like, Celtic symbols on it, so it's like a Celtic coin or something like that, right? But then it would also have Arabic writing on it, and it would say, like, Allah is the one true God, and on it, and crazy stuff like that. And he was just, like, this theory was just blowing my mind that basically, like, even the ancient Hebrew, like, that, like, they were actually speaking, like, Aramaic, right? And Aramaic was just a dialect of Arabic. And so it's like all of this was Arabic, and they had way more influence than we give them credit for, and it was this huge cover up, and maybe that has something to do with Tartaria too, like, in the reset and covering up, like, this old history that, like, the Arabic language and the Arabic people had way more, like, than we ever even knew. And it just blew my fucking mind, dude. He was rewriting history in my head. I was like, holy shit. And that makes way more sense.
Yeah. And things like Islam in the Arabic world is, we have it confused as Islam being something that progresses the ancient world. Actually, Islam was set to war against the previously existing pagan Arabic world. And through their military efforts, they were able to destroy literally all of history, including burning the libraries of Alexandria, including decapitating all the scholars of Baghdad. They did shit that people still are having to figure out because the records were so destroyed. Like cities, all of the ruins are because of the Islamic revolt. Like the reason why Babylon doesn't exist, why the Gardens of Babylon are gone, why the Seleucid Empire is there's really no evidence of it, even though it was Alexander the Great's absolute direct descendants, the Greeks, when they ruled that area, including when the time of Jesus, when he was born, was a Seleucid Empire controlled Jerusalem. And the reason why they were giving taxation to the Romans is because the Seleucid Empire had been subjugated by Rome. And so the reason why
in Rome, actually, for a while, he was explaining that they had a Muslim Caesar.
Yep.
That it had been taken over. Well, and so the Catholic Church doesn't recognize it, and like they're like, no, that never happened. But like the Orthodox Church definitely recognizes it, and they're like, no, that absolutely happened.
There's a reason why Russians are Muslim. There's a reason why there's the cupola domes in Moscow and the Kremlin. Those are Muslim buildings. Tartaria is an
dude. You might be right about that. They do look Muslim, and people don't want to talk about that.
They don't want to talk about that. And
that's fascinating.
And they've made up this concept of Genghis Khan. And I know that's not what we're going to talk about in this episode, but they also made up the idea of Mongols and the Huns as this idea of why cultural diffusion occurred so rapid. Like that's like, oh, well, these people were just riding horses all around the world, and that's why all these things kind of. And you're like, or was there really a global, intermixed, international, society, like trade system and travel system, which would blow people's minds? That, like, there is a movie with Antonio Banderas as a Spanish Muslim prince who is sent to live with Vikings as a ambassador. And this is the 13th warrior. And then he goes on the battle and he earns their respect, and he writes the myth of Beowulf in their language, English, which becomes, and it was written by Michael Crichton. So it's not this throwaway thing. It's, he was this absolutely, intelligent person who is realizing the significance of that Muslims and the Islamic world, the Arabic world, is the reason why we have any books or any historical texts of the ancient world at all. And it's through, for example, Islamic mysticism, Sufism, and Yazidism that we have modern day Gnosticism, because it was the, say, for example, the preservation of John the Baptist's works are these apocryphal doctrines. And if anything, Islam is suffering a increasing purge against that, where even today it seems to be like how Christianity today is seen as the antithesis of all things occult, and the same thing as Orthodox is Judaism is considered all things anti-Kabbalistic, but really it's not. And anyone who knows the truth knows it's not. The people derive their power from masteries of these concepts. Like we're going to talk about the sacred feminine, the divine masculine, and the third option, the sacred third option, which is the union of both. And this idea of non-human existence that is both existences, the Shekinah glory of God, as they've talked about it in the Kabbalistic traditions, or in the Freemasonic or the Southern Baptist even. The Shekinah glory of God, which is the male, female, he, her, she, him idea of God, and this idea of creation in the garden, for example. Fun fact while we get into this, pagan means return to the garden, or regardening, which means...
Does it really? That's fascinating.
And it means the return to the Garden of Eden. It means that in every single pagan religion, it's the recreation of the Garden of Eden. And that it's every single pagan religion ultimately is the same mythology.
Or the Bach Saga, the Garden of Heathen. If you, I don't know, have you looked into the Bach Saga at all? That's most fascinating thing in the world, man. It's such a fun thing.
It's one of the many alternative / more symbolic legends of creation. I actually really encourage people to look into the the Native American / Hispanic American areas mythologies, and that could be my own because of my own location and traditions and culture. But the Mayan and Aztec birth cycles of the earth and the origin cycles and shit like that shit blows my fucking mind,
dude. We should do an episode on that. We're gonna get way off topic if we start talking about this, but that's fascinating shit, man. I love it.
Involves the divine masculine, divine feminine, and
it does absolutely
third option. Now this is where we'll get into it. I have a good side and the bad side. I have the highly significant occult, like symbolic individual side, then the real world black pill side and what's going on with these forces currently. But keep in mind that in everything, these forces exist and they play themselves out. These are universal realities, not mere concepts and not mere things to be believed in or not. They are realities in all things. They form the basis for human psychology or human identity, or even what it means to be intelligent or spiritual. And these are at the very fundamental levels, and so intangible, so metaphysical. They are thoughts, they are feelings, they are experiences that every human being, every single human being out of these 7 point whatever billion, nearly 8 billion human beings, every single human being has a spirit and a soul. It is beyond language. It is beyond time and space. It is, part of the great universal thing, right? So that's my own kind of disclaimer when we get into it, because I will lay into it. I will lay into both of them and talk about how they produced a lot of evils in this world. For however much good they produced, that they produced so much evil because of it. And
I think it's specific groups though that occult and take over these things and yeah, I don't know. I mean, because I'll tell you where I'm at. I'll tell you my bias. I am a Christian. I call myself a Christ follower, right? So philosophically, I try to be Christ-like. That's my goal. So I don't even like to use the word Christian because Christianity has so much baggage attached to it. So I will tell you that is my bias. And I think that Christianity has definitely been co-opted and occulted and turned into something ugly. Because to me, when I hear things about what the heck with it, when they were killing when they were killing all the Jewish people in Spain, what was that called? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Inquisition.
Yeah, the Inquisition, things like that. That has nothing to do with the teachings of Christ.
Yeah. Zero. Has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. So I hate when people are well, Christianity has caused so much bloodshed. I'm yes, it has. Mm-hmm. The co-option of Christianity, and they've done these things in the name of Christianity. Now it's disgusting. It's evil.
Let's start with Catholicism, and let's see how. Let's break this down into the divine masculine, divine feminine battle within Catholicism and what Catholicism truly is. Catholicism is for the tomb. It's a catacomb, right? It was the idea of death, so it's a death cult. But the idea of the Virgin Mary is the adoption of the pagan concept of the sacred feminine in the form of Isis and in the form of Hera and the form of the virginal goddesses, Aphrodite, Artemis, Demeter, all of that. It was pick and choose, but the most conceptual realities of it was attributed to the Virgin Mary, most blessed upon all women. That's what I'm saying. The idea of Catholics was the Virgin Mary was the divine feminine, and the divine masculine. Very interestingly, so this is the gateway to it. The divine masculine is best represented in Catholicism as the Pope, not Christ, but the Pope through God. Because the idea of Christ in Catholicism is that Christ is that third option, the binding and communion of two of those forces, the divine force, God impregnating the sacred feminine, the cosmic egg, which is what's known traditionally in ancient lore, versus the sky god, Zeus, Saturn, these heavenly father figures, which come into the world in the Greek pantheon and the Roman pantheon, which was adopted from the Greek You can see the story in Poseidon, Zeus, Hades, these hyper only masculine figures approach divinely feminine women and take them for bridegrooms, and then from the brides they either produce the children, which become demigods, and which who live out their heroic cycles on earth, right? Which is the entire reason why Catholicism has based the life and times of Jesus Christ. So if you want to get even crazier, personally, just as an A-side, I hold to the theory that Jesus Christ and Julius Caesar were one and the same figure, and
I've heard that
historically they have split the two.
Because also Muhammad, I've heard the same thing.
Yeah,
and Krishna and all kinds of
Muhammad was
some interesting things.
Catholic, definitely first a pagan Arab, but married to a Catholic woman of great fortunes, and intentionally educated in the ways of the religions of Abraham, of the monotheistic religions of Abraham, so that Islam would be traditionally an Abrahamic religion, and thus get abilities to convert the local now rebellious and absolutely like bandit tribes and nomad tribes of the ex-Jews who were forced into the deserts after Rome and burned down Jerusalem, the temple, and scattered them to the winds. So after that, which is a hilarious case, that there is no real link to true Israel or of the Old Testament, that Judea, the North Kingdom, went up to the Ukraine, and then they were the Khazars from there on. And then the Islamic world and the Christian world, where they tried to escape, crushed into them. And then they had to disseminate and become the diaspora. And then the Israelis actually became the Arabic Middle Eastern peoples, the Palestinians, etc., who over time let themselves be converted over to the earliest ages of Islam. They're the ones who burned down.
There's a ton, though, man. There's a ton of those Muslim Palestinians that were Jews. They actually were Jews, but they just found it easier to get along, to go along, and they're just like, okay, yeah, we're.
If you look at
Muslims, but like to me, dude, they're the only ones that have the true like. If you want to talk about like this is their Christian promised land, they're the only ones that actually have any real like bloodline attachment to that land anymore. Well, like the rest of it is just, to me, like I don't even think that the Khazars had like Jewish blood. I don't think so, and I don't think any of the Ashkenazi Jews have any fucking actual genetic tie to that land. I just see it as like European imperialism 2.0.
Yeah, like, and then you get the idea that Jesus Christ cut off that covenant and closed the old book, so it's an irrelevant issue. But at the same time, the only true Israelites would be the tribe of Dan, who are the Vikings, who are the
that's fascinating. I don't know about that, but that's cool.
No, and you think about it, like that's why Queen Elizabeth has the Stone of Jacob under the crown of the Church of the Queen of England, and you're like, why? And you're like, because they think that they literally have the genealogies of the, like, when they say the bloodline of Christ, the Holy Grail, that's what they mean, are the last provable bloodlines to the days of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel.
So I've 100% heard that before, that is what they're talking about. But I've also heard that these people literally don't think that they have that blood. They think that they have the blood of the Canaanites, of Cain. Right? Is it both?
It comes from Adam. It's all the same because it comes from Adam. The original divine male archetype for most of this is, he's the archetype of the third option, the son, the product, the very strange existential creation of the son figure, which is a combination of both, with Eve being the divine feminine, or Lilith being the divine feminine originally, and God being the divine masculine, the Saturnic demiurge figure. Because ultimately, no matter what, Catholic, Kabbalistic Jew, Muslim, or any of the, say, Asian religions, the cults there, or any of the South American or Western Hemisphere religions, the cult religions, it's ultimately easiest understood as this: divine feminine is Sophia, knowledge, birth, fertility, all the feminine, like instinctively, intuitively, sixth sense feminine attributes to the yin, the you know, like even that which cannot be understood but is just inherently understood as this one idea of the spectrum, right? And the spectrum has the middle part, which is pure neutrality, and then goes into the masculine. And the divine masculine is not an earthly presence. It is a heavenly force, an outside force, as far outside of the force as you can get, that pushes into you as a penetrative phallic action to inseminate, to bring that fluid into the cosmic egg or into the cosmic womb or the great yoni or the great, and this is going to get really kind of, because it ultimately is how life starts, how life is conceived, is the mixture, is the meaning of the union of these two absolutes, which produces the secret third thing, which is just existence itself, which is just creation itself, without identity, without gender, without being, without a physical substance, without a form. It's just that an intelligence that free floats. It's the idea of God being everything all around us and nothing at all at the same time. And that's the truth. All Gnostics and all true Christians and all true Jews and all true Muslims know that through Scripture, it clearly states in dozens and dozens of ways that God is not human, God is not understandable, God is the beyond and ultimate meta concept of which all concepts are inferior in scope and importance. It literally created the entire universe and is beyond it. When the universe ends, it will still exist. It has no attachment to anything in this physical dimension or world. It has no form or function beyond it can create all form and function. It has no there is no way to judge its actions, for there is no way to understand it. And because it is literally the life spark inside all, and all their destiny and action is completely within its mastery and knowledge. And in much the same way John Baptist said, God does not need Abraham. God can make children from stone. It is a purely existing life force that is literally beyond the flesh world or the world of men and women. But the divine masculine, divine feminine are purely within the mental, and only the mental, because this is a spiritual mental phenomenon at all to even express reality in these terms, because the most accurate way is the third option, is the idea of Christ, the being in pure acceptance in the moment, zen, where all your powers are then unlocked and you literally are like walking on water, because you are literally lighter than any concern of the moment, that's much of what he said. Like it's there is no concern or love of this world. There is only a love of being, of the Father, of creation, of these concepts. Even then, the testaments that we read, the King James version of the Bible, which I have read cover to cover, was written by Freemasons, was written by divine masculine principle worshipers, and all the language is absolutely skewed favorably in one direction or the other. So just to get that kind of out of the way. Now, you can still love Christ and you can still love God, but you have to know that if the Catholic Church is one way corrupted, then Protestant churches are also the same way corrupted. And they are also divine masculine. They teach you that women are evil, and that, in fact, in many cases, that Satan is a woman. And in the black pill discussion,
I haven't heard that one yet.
They have fully embraced it. If you look into, say, witchcraft, vampirism, things like that, these are women-led cults. These are female-oriented Hecate, chaos goddess worshiping. There's a whole shadow. For all things exists the shadow, right? And even though you may have the best white-sided magician, law and order abiding, holy, sacred, feminine, druid, Wicca, Mother Earth worshiping people, you have Lilith worshipers who are the incarnation of all rage and pain, revenging the fate of women by murdering babies, by killing people, their men who they sacrifice to their goddess.
Do you think that has anything to do with maybe the occult folks that the eugenicists that like started Planned Parenthood? Because that seems a hell of a lot like they're aborting a hell of a lot of babies, and they're they're very protective over it. It's a very interesting thing.
Today, October 3rd, 2022, the Church of Satan filed a motion against the Supreme Court against the banning of abortion because it violates their religious freedoms.
Yeah.
This is absolutely...
We should be able to murder our babies. That's part of our religion.
It's part of their religion. And now I'm not saying that there is... I'm not saying that this is good in any form. I'm not saying that. But it is absolutely the natural progression beyond these occult societies. Like I said, I hate these societies with a passion. I studied them as the enemy. But I studied them for wanting to know why evil exists in this world. And one of the reasons is because both the divine masculine and the divine feminine cults of this world can be perverted to go to extremes. And with the divine masculine, you have Moloch and then you have Baal. And both of those are extreme masculine, homosexual gods that do not seek creation, but seek the ultimate masculine act of destruction. They are the bull god. They are the horn god. Their sacred rites include homosexual rape. They are the ones who prefer trans men into women, where it's a woman but with a phallus, with a dick. That's what they prefer, because they do not want any part of the feminine. They want only the masculine. This is the kind of mentality where you see two fully butch masculine guys fucking each other, and that's what the Moloch church is. That is in all history, that's who worshipped and performed the infant sacrifices, because maternity the maternal instinct to raise a child is feminine. And the most masculine thing to do is to be able to look at a child and then throw it into a fire for your bull god to give you a massive erection so you could fuck boyfriends and your tranny dudes. And it's a absolute dark black hole of a belief, but it's been existent for thousands of years.
Now, so what this made me think of real fast. Okay, sorry. What this made me think of real fast is I had heard these stories. Oh, man, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Crazy Bone that said this. Rapper back in the day was talking about how black rap was co-opted, he said, by these specific corporations, and they wanted to make rap more violent, more like just terrible, basically, right? Just to influence the culture, so it would, because they were attached to private prisons. These guys were like people that were like in corporations attached to private prisons. They wanted more young black men to go to prison because they were going to get a cut. And so the record industry was like shaking hands with the private prison industry and saying like, hey, we're going to make an agreement. We're going to promote and push more violent, terrible hip hop that will get more young black men into prisons. And so they just had this like cycle, like this whole thing. And then then they can never, I don't vote myself because I'm an anarchist, but you lose your voting rights. So you lose your voice in that weird sense. If your vote even counts, I don't think it does. But then you also lose any legitimate right to self-defense. You can never legally own a firearm. And if you have one, I can put your ass right back in prison. You know what I mean? And it was a way to control the black men. And then also, dude, I was hearing about these like really rich music execs that there's this like ritualistic sex magic ritual they call like breaking the bull. So they want to get the most like big masculine black man that's like, and they want to rape him.
Yep.
They want to have sex with him. And that made me think, like you're describing the Moloch rituals, this would make a lot of sense if this was like a Moloch thing.
Yes.
Like these people were, that breaking of the bull ceremony.
Yeah, ceremonial homosexuality, which is in rap, which is absolutely one of the subtexts of rap, is that it's 100% the co-option of queer black culture, and that's just an A side. But like, no, 100%. That's the black magic influence. That's the corruption of secret societies into the real world, where something as innocent as music, which is sold to people, as one thing, is because black magic is all deception, it's all an illusion, it's all subliminal, that the iconography and the messages and the climates that it creates are the spell, are the ritual itself. And there's a reason why Eazy-E died of AIDS, for example. And then I'm saying, like, before we can go into an entire episode on the hidden and subtextual world, like the secret society of music. But
yeah, we should.
There is
but I just want to tie in that what I meant when they're sending them to prison is like then in prison, men get raped. It's just a huge rape society, and they allow it to happen.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. That's the whole case of this. Prisons are themselves extremely black magic ritual sacrifice things, satanic in their design. They're designed like pentagrams and like shit like that. They're fucked up. I was like, prisons are super fucked up. But yeah, like with the Moloch culture and everything like that, the bull breaking, it's present in every aspect of all sexual abuse, all ritual abuse, all like major pedophilia, all major serial killers. There is that included in satanic rituals of all kinds, Wiccan rituals, Freemasonic rituals of certain degrees. For example, the mortar spade. The mortar spade is symbolic for a Mason who has gone through ritualistic sodomy. And that is a bond between brothers as it's represented as that, because the Freemasons worship the divine masculine. They worship an architect, a grand architect who is Hiram Labiff. And those people back in the King Solomonic days practiced ritual sodomy. It was the church.
I would love to do an episode just on Hiram. What the hell is his name?
Hiram Labiff.
Hiram Labiff. I would love to do an episode on that and just the building of Solomon's Temple and the actual meaning of Solomon's Temple. Yep. It's pretty fucking wild, man.
But I was going to go into
shit about that.
Yeah, into the other side. And here's the thing with the Pharisees. The Pharisees were exactly the same as I'm describing now. By the time of Jesus Christ, he is referring to this synagogue of Satan, the Pharisees, because they aren't any part the same as the Exodus Hebrews, the ones who built the Temple of Solomon. They are this weird, degenerate society, a secret society that is the Freemasons, that is that culture, that is that black and white secret ranked degree system. And that's who he's railing against. And that's why when the concepts of Freemasonry come up, it's all about the fact that they're trying to deny that they are the Pharisees. They're trying to deny that they are literally the ones who lost the temple and who were given the responsibilities. And they're trying to rebuild the temple, the third temple. And that's a big push of theirs, is to rebuild the third temple, to rebuild it again. And this is creating the New World Order, etc. And there's a reason why they're motivated. Now, what's the motivation? Oh, you have the NWO. So what does the NWO do? Just, say make black people fuck each other in the ass? No, they're trying to rebuild the third temple, but keep the other nations down so that they can achieve this goal, etc. And but I was gonna say, if you go the other way, divine feminine worship, you have your Lilith cults. The Lilith cult demands 1,000 infant sacrifices per day. 1,000 sacrifices. You have the Eve cults of Wicca and of various Gnostic sects like the Cathars, who believe that the spirit of Eve, who bit the apple of knowledge and cast mankind out of the Garden of Eden, was the true hero of mankind. These are Promethean cults. These are cults of Harry's. These are the ancient mystery cults. Isis, for example, in ancient Egyptian mythology, stole the secret of creation from Ra, tricked him with her intellect, her cunning, took the secret of life, the power of God, the sun god, the sky father, and gave it to man. And that's why Isis is revered as the goddess of, that she is. That's how she's indebted, or how people are indebted to her. And she was as equal or even greater than this idea of binaries, of masculine god of Ra, until they made it monotheistic. And all monotheism is choosing one or the other. And historically, the solar cult of divine masculinity has triumphed through violence and through ritual rape and through basically the creation of society as we know it. which is 100% the conquest of the Catholic Church, of the Anglosphere, etc. With the feminine cults weaponizing just the same. Look at how Boudica, for example, in history, treated the Romans by burning down typically cities. Typically, these feminine cults work through fires, work through.
I want to play devil's advocate for Boudica.
I love Boudica as a historical figure. No, Boudica, but that's.
Well, I just want to play devil's advocate for her because, first of all, if you're invading my home, I'm gonna fucking do anything to you.
Oh yeah,
and fuck you. So that's my first part, and then the second part was like, supposedly, like historically, this was documented. You know, I don't know how much of history I buy, anyways. Her and her virgin daughters were like raped
by
and,
the
like
soul.
Her daughters were like fucking raped in front of her, and therefore like ruining them for marriage and all this. And it was like done on purpose just to fuck with them. And so like anything Boudica did, good.
No, absolutely. That the idea of the Boudica War between her and what created the empire of the British Empire is from Boudica. And the captured Romans and those that were Romanized and left behind. Now, I'm not going to go into the complete history of the British Empire, the crypto history of it, but Boudica did not.
That would be a fun episode in itself, dude. Yeah. The British Empire, man. I blame every modern problem on the British Empire. It's like 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon. You know that concept? You can find like every fucking modern problem is Britain's fault.
Yeah. And so, I mean, no, you're absolutely right. And it's because they are a queen. They have a king, yes, but they are a queen and matriarchy. They are a feminine worshiping society, and their royal family is a cult based on the royal feminine, the Santa Sangra, the Holy Grail, which is the divine feminine, as all Dan Brown fans are fully aware of. If you've ever seen any of the Dan Brown movies, you know, the Illuminati. Definitely go watch them. Go watch those films. They're very much like, it's just, you know, like ABC. This is obviously, we're telling you what's going on, and you just have to choose to listen or not. It's not a film. It is a lesson, kind of, you know, just like a 2-hour like lesson on the true history of suppression of Jesus Christ's bloodline, of his humanity, of his of the Catholic Church's conspiracy of silence and their organized crime syndicate that they call a church and things like that. But yeah, that's the thing, like because you worship the divine masculine does not mean you are inherently 100% right or wrong, but people do commit a lot of evil. And one of the main evils that is committed in the name of the divine masculine is ceremonial rape, and rape for domination and submission, the breaking of the will, the breaking of the buck, the breaking of the bull. And that is 100% why rape happens in prisons. It's 100% why rape happens in the military, 100% why rape happens in any institution of power like the cults, the secret societies, and why rape is 100% a part of all these secret societies. All of these secret societies practices ceremonial homosexuality, and this is a co-option, yes, of the natural homosexual side of people, but it is only in divine and purely divine masculine worshiping societies where homosexuality and pedophilia, homosexual pedophilia, takes a elect and special ceremonial, almost occult position, which is why in the Catholic Church, priests fuck little boys, because that is the symptom of a divine masculine worshiping psychology. I'm saying, like, dude, so
I was just having this conversation like just the other fucking day, dude. It was like the promotion of this pedophilia is absolutely fucking insane. And I was like, if I was a homosexual, dude, if I was like a gay guy, I'd be like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like that, like down in Los Angeles and in Austin, Texas, when they're having little boys go on the stage and do drag queen shows, you're like, if I'm a gay guy, I'm like, first of all, get this fucking kid out of here. It's like every gay man I know, they're wild, man. They're just great. They're great people. They're fun. Like, not everyone, actually. Some gay guys I know are assholes, but some of the gay guys I know are fucking great. My good friends, and dude, they just want to like do blow back here and then go and have sex in the corner in the skeezy bar and just have like that's the thing. They're just a bunch of fun old adult degenerates, and that's great.
What I'm saying.
That's not a place for a fucking kid, dude.
Yeah.
And if I was a gay guy, I'd be like, get these fucking kids out of here. You're ruining my vibe. B, why the fuck you're giving gay people a terrible name right now. What are you doing? To be honest, what are you guys doing?
Like, to be honest, 9 out of 10 people are not aware of this. They're not awake. They are materialists. They are living in their moment. They don't have an ulterior motive or a connection to any of this. But the people that are in charge of pushing this, because there's someone organizing all this, there's someone allowing it. There was one in, I think, Dallas, where they had armed guards. They had literally.
I know the one in Austin that they had armed guards, and they were like.
So was the one in Austin? Yeah. And I was like, so this is clearly they're trying to start something, and they want.
Dude, and they're gonna get something if you keep pushing like that, dude. Honestly, and that's part of that's also part of the talk that I've been having with folks. It's like all it's gonna take is all of these things are from countries that are rich and opulent, and we have all this extra wealth, and we can be these weird circus freaks, and that shit doesn't happen in fucking that shit doesn't happen in Afghanistan. Well, I don't know, some other weird shit happens there, but you know what I mean. But that shit specifically in poor countries.
In all seriousness, pedophilia is a problem worldwide, and it's a symptom of a good society like ours that is finally able to ethically stand up against it. Because I would say regardless of what the culture tradition is, children are not respected or given rights, and they're not treated like human beings, regardless of society.
You're absolutely right, man. Think about yes, they can be used for slave labor, by their parents. They can also. It's if I fucking smack you, I can get arrested and go to jail for assault.
What I think is fucked up.
If that's a child and I smack them.
Yeah, what I think is fucked up is how they are treated in schools. They are abused and they are co-opted and indoctrinated.
You're putting your child in a government indoctrination camp, and you sign away your rights to the government the second you let them darken that doorway and you sign that shit. Then you know what? The government can do any medical treatment they want on your kids because it's called implied consent. They've told me this shit. They can go and put fluoride treatments all over your kids' teeth. They can fucking give them any vaccine. They can give them hormone replacement therapy. They can do anything. They can fucking do whatever they want. Why? Because you implied the consent when you brought your child here. So if you fucking taking your child to a public school, you're a fucking fool.
The idea itself, there's a huge reason in the understanding America as trying to create the perpetual and forever child, in which it's a even more fucked up understanding where a person is only valued or important in their youth, and that's it. And it goes into so much of this, but that goes into so much, and it's so much fucked up shit, especially with the pedophilia side. And the mullet cults, like I said, mullet cults are more likely to kill in snuff films and have these BDSM type sex cults, especially throughout Europe. But female cults are just as likely to have murder rings, drug rings, in place of not necessarily strictly pedophilic, but specifically based on infants, specifically based on babies, specifically based on literally newborns and things like that. So a mullet cult will fuck a 13-year-old kid to death on film. A Lilith cult will have a child specifically to kill it. The child will be born, it will be brought to a table and stabbed through the heart. This is
just making me think of Frazzle Drip and Hill Dog.
So let's go into this modern dark side of how it controls society. Hillary Clinton, absolutely divine, feminine, worshiping, but dark side as shit. Lilith cult, Eastern Star, dark side of ISIS, because they follow the moon, and the moon is full And then there's the new moon, which is completely black. And this works out in their black and white duality of the MK Ultra and various other ways. So always this Black Lodge, definitely selective volunteer, what could be easily just called satanic and just written off as that, right? Like it's too long, didn't read, it's just satanic, but it's absolutely divine feminine, personified in its darkest form. Her, let's be honest, Muslim Arabic Huma Abedin, for example, during the days of Pizzagate, but she's had many different handlers and assistants throughout her entire lifetime because she was born into it from Arkansas, but say it easy, Satanist, but they're like whatever cult group that fled to the Ozarks, and whatever hybrid of lay occultist and just evil, because the way people survived in the frontier was 100% organized crime. And so she is the legacy of this true America, which is the country Satanist, the country murderer, the people with literal bodies buried under the floorboards type folk who amassed massive wealth through land ownings, and when the world modernized, were able to use those predatory and evil instincts with knowledge, with education. She's not dumb. She's a complete genius. She's well educated at that, right? Given privilege and initiation to a lot of circles. She was absolutely aware of the occult and the practices of the societies to belong to, that of all politicians. Bohemian Grove comes to mind, for example. Bill Clinton, big fan of Bohemian Grove. Everyone talks about Epstein Island. People kind of forget about Bohemian Grove. That was like the first Epstein Island that's still going on, that no one has ever tried to stop, besides Alex Jones going there. And that's the thing, like Epstein Island at least got stopped because I think the Bohemian Grove guys stopped it. I think they were the ones who were like tired of the competition. They were like, shut that shit down. No, but the Bohemian Grove guys are the same thing. These female cultists. And you know why the Bohemian Grove is female? And even though it has all male occupants, it's because they worship the owl, which is the owl of Artemis.
Interesting, because I was going to think that, because they sometimes refer to that owl as Moloch, and I know that there's a lot of homosexual activity that happens at Bohemian.
Yes, and the ritual homosexuality, yeah. But they also cross-dress. Now, men can also worship the goddess, but when the men worship the goddess, it's cross-dressing and fagging out. I can't explain this any other way. Fagging out, where it's like, they wear drag and they suck each other off, and it's fucking total submission, bottoming stuff. They don't want to put that in the terms, but Moloch would be more of an aggressive topping action. It's so fucked up that they have to turn this occult and weird, because like I remember when I was a teenager, I loved Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I used to go to the fucking Rocky Horror Picture Show all the time. I won a costume contest. I was a dirty sled. I shook my dick and nuts on stage, and I won a fucking lollipop. That was the first prize. The Rocky Horror Picture Show. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is also symbolic of this divine masculine, divine feminine in the occult as it comes to terms with both the light and the perverse. With Janet
and then Brad, they have. Okay, I was just going to say
side, divine masculine, divine feminine, but Frankenfurter and Rocky being the dark side, because the dark side is that Moloch is created, like I said, the boy toy, sex slave, top Rocky, and then Frankenfurter, who is a dude in drag, but the idea that is in praise of this divine perversion. Lilith, for example, extreme succubus energy, extreme incubus energy to its followers. These are sex cults. These are understood as like the Dionysians and stuff like that. This idea of extreme lust, nymphomania, willing encouragement of sexual pursuit, activity, and independence in its own membership. Nothing is taboo to an initiate of these divine feminine cults, good or bad. So this is what you have to, so good or the idea of limiting hedonism or not, but everything is encouraged, from lesbianism They use that the ceremony of homosexuality between women, marriage with men, procreation, sleeping around, female pedophilia. All of that is encouraged. It's 100% encouraged and endorsed, and it's taught to its members at a very young age. It's also taught sometimes as Christianity. All these things are sometimes taught under the guise of Christianity. The Children of God cult, for example, very famous Christian pedophile cult. They would recruit their members through seduction. They would send out their young girls and young boys to seduce new membership and recruit them to their cult. And this is connected with the CIA. That's connected with a lot of behind-the-scenes government actions. But these cults do this regardless. A lot of the hippie cults, a lot of the New Age cults were fully into this free love idea. And all of that is a return to the orgiastic bacchanalia of ancient Greece, ancient Rome. And even before that, which is these fertility rituals, which they have existence from Celtic religions, Gallic religions, and Germanic religions. And all cultures have this side of it. Like I said, all of it has a divine feminine or divine masculine side, and the endorsement of promiscuity and sexual hedonism, nudity. For example, we mentioned rap music earlier. Pop music is completely divine feminine and worshiping in that 100% the best artists, quote unquote, the most famous artists are women. They are women who sell their sex. They are women who are flaunting their sex, like Beyonce, etc., who come out, Madonna, who come out specifically in costume of Ishtar, costumes of Astra, and various other, even it goes like Katy Perry and her Egyptian Isis costuming and stuff like that. Like it just goes on and goes on and goes on. 100%. The world is still the chessboard, the stage of these ancient divinities, of the sacred masculine, sacred feminine.
So, Tex, I want to ask your opinion on this. So we have these cults, right? And these cults are worshiping things like Moloch, Baal, Ishtar, Isis, these like divine feminine, these divine masculine, and you're
Sophia and the demiurge. It's Saturn and it's opposite. It's Saturn and Neptune. It's the idea of a binary, two pillars, masculine, feminine, right? And all the different pagan deities are just avatars of these two forces, which exist in all people simultaneously, but are represented as feminine and masculine poles.
So what I was going to ask you is, so we have this divine feminine, we have this divine masculine going on here, and these are representing like these creator, and then I don't really understand what the feminine is besides like maybe the nurturer and maybe this, but so is there an actual deity? Do you believe in, is there a being behind this divine feminine? Is there a being behind this divine masculine? Was there a creator? Can this be tied into anything like the Anunnaki? Was there any like genetic manipulation? They're worshiping like ancient gods that might have actually been aliens. Is there something like that? Or is this like you said, is this just like a kind of concept of the masculine coming as the creation, coming into the womb, creating all of this, like something coming into nothing, I guess, and then combining and creating? Is there more to it than that? Or do you think it's just that?
Personally, I kind of even reserve judgment for what this all ultimately means and what the ultimate source of it all is, whether or not, but personally, I am leaning towards they are not real divine avatars of anything besides universal forces like energies, like attraction, push pull type simplicities, 1 zeros, and that's the true nature of all of this reality, the Fibonacci sequence that we call existence. It's actually very simple and at the same time not based in human in real form or real intelligence. It's kind of just a matter of atomic reality, but the energies are real. The energies are real. The creator is also real. The creator of all the universe is real. We are just, and even these two major forces are just fractions of a greater limitless picture of forces that play out simultaneously. Now, the human landscape is completely created by these two forces, the Sophia and the Demiurge. So all of human thought, reality, and existence is on the chessboard of black and white, exactly, of the chess pieces between this binary. But
Tex, tell me your opinion on this. I'm curious about
your is to become enlightened of this game, this playing field, this matrix in its truest form of the word matrix, this set of variables. And even though you can't free yourself from it, but it's just to recognize more and more lucidly the truth behind these polar opposite forces, but they're not, because they work together like a yin yang. And you achieve that kind of Taoist third option, which is, like I said, gnosis, which is the gift that Christ gave us, the key of Solomon. In many cases, and that's what's also known as, this idea of enlightenment. When you see that man is made up of these, but is also the third thing, the son of them, the creation of them, both divine and material. And it's like you said, it comes down to this is the question of all human spirituality. It's not a matter of gods, even I think of the Anunnaki, or of the ancient aliens, or of any celestial being. I think this is a matter of awareness itself. This is a matter of life itself, and not to be any less dramatic of it, but that is what life is. That is all. That is what is ISIS. It is the is. And I say, like, it's the idea that what is the zoo. And you look in the ancient Anunnaki. I was actually watching videos on that before we started the program. This is 100% represented in the Sumerian mythology. This is 100% represented in that. And Pazuzu and Lilith. The Lilith is still represented in the ancient Sumerians. Lilith is actually directly represented in the ancient Sumerians as the divine feminine. Well, Pazuzu, Zu, is the cosmic bird, the energy from the sky. So literally, it's the winged visitor of the sky, and that they fight. They constantly are opposed to each other, and that they kind of are at the same time one and the same. And so it goes into, there's no culture without this. There was no culture that started this. All cultures, all human beings tell their very existence through this system of orientation, of awareness, of from their very infancy, their mother, their father, who they are. And if you watch like Neon Genesis Evangelion, a great anime series of 4 films, even in a modern, hyper-modern, postmodern technological context, what it means to be human and to have a soul is to come to terms with the balance that you were born with of these multiple factors, or really just 3. 1, the divine masculine, divine feminine, your origin, and who created you, what you are reincarnated into. Because a big part of the divine masculine is the creation of the sun, who is a demigod, and the demigod's incarnation of the Father. The Father is the creator, but then is also destroyed, typically by the Son, who then assumes the Father's place and identity in these pantheonic existences. except for Christianity, where it broke off specifically because it's a divine masculine church, and they can't have the divine masculine sky god be defeated by the natural third option which arises, which is the sun, which is the logos, the third Holy Ghost. I mean, it's the sun. This is the thing too. So Catholicism wrote out women so much that they replaced the divine, the Father, the Mother, and the Son with the Holy Ghost, and they were just like, it's a fucking ghost. It's invisible. It's a, we don't know what they were trying to say. Hey, like it was clearly the Father, the Mother, and the Son, the Trinity. A father, a mother make a son. It's the Trinity. And they were like, it's the Father, the Son, and then the Holy Ghost, which is a spiritual occult understanding of this, metaphysical energy that follows. And you're like, no, it's the mother. It's clearly the mother. The two energies come together and they make the son.
Yeah, but they couldn't write her out altogether. I guess that's why Mother Mary came in the picture, right?
They included Mary, and they made her a whore because of the idea of sexuality. Now, if you look at Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, Cleopatra was written as a very exotic seductress who had hundreds of lovers, but that wasn't considered a shameful thing. She was literally a sex goddess of ancient Egypt, and she seduced Julius Caesar through her divine femininity, right? Her clever guile and wills. If Julius Caesar and Jesus Christ are, in fact, the same individual, Mary Magdalene is Cleopatra. If that even was her real name, Cleopatra, it does seem kind of, like made up. And that this two pairings of ancient Egyptian polarities created their own children. So and the dynasty of the Merovingi, the Holy Grail. But she was never considered a prostitute. She was never considered a low birth. And in fact, Jesus Christ loved her so much that he kissed her on the mouth so much that she made the other disciples jealous. And why would they be jealous of him kissing a woman? It's because they were used to a solar divine masculine cult of ceremonial homosexuality, which Jesus did not practice. And in fact, they were kind of weirded out about that. When Jesus Christ is even referenced as having ceremonially performed that with a boy during the night he was taken by guards, in which he was teaching this boy the mysteries while he was nude, but for save a linen cloth. And when Jesus came with the guards, he fled into the night. Now, that was put there as just a simple allusion to the rituals of the times, which were astrotheological and obviously based on older generations teaching the mysteries of life to the younger generation. And this includes all mysteries of life and death, including the body, which is represented in Scorpio, with its tail being the representative of the dick. And there's this whole thing, right? And I was like, so every single thing from the horoscope to the life of Jesus to the creation of the Catholic Church is a reconciliation between two forces and their cultural legacies, their realities, and that every generation deals with it. It's always present in all things: the career fields, cultures, castes, churches, creeds, geographies. Regardless of the sophistication or the severity, it's always there in some proportion.
So what are these mystery schools? What are they hiding? What are they occulting? In your opinion, I mean, obviously we're not going to know everything that they're doing, but like, what is this secret knowledge that they're hiding besides, I guess, the Holy Grail, I guess, Jesus's bloodline? That's what the Knights Templar, that's what started it, right? Well, I mean, I guess there was mystery school before that, but that was like
not every secret society has the same goals, or even though they're all connected, doesn't have the same goals. For example, there's a secret society that existed in South Korea. They were a divine feminine dark side Lilith cult called the Cult of the Eight Goddesses. This cult was so strong that it literally controlled the presidents of South Korea for like 8 years. Like everything they said, and they edited the speeches. They appointed cabinet members in political offices. They performed horoscopes. They literally controlled her schedule because they would plan like Nancy Reagan, etc., These world leaders belong to these cults, but this cult of the 8 goddesses hated men, absolutely hated men, hated their power in society, hated traditional Korean family structures down to the very core, seeking to dispose of them by doing things like legalizing abortion, doing things like instigating a war with North Korea, or sacrificing an entire ferry's worth of students, given that they are desiring child sacrifices, etc. So this plays out in the real world. Whether or not those goals are the same as, say, Hillary Clinton, who, belonging to the Rothschilds and these Kabbalistic heathenist Canaanite Israel or families, these Zionist families, the Rothschilds, etc., basically all under the umbrella of the Rothschilds, and I believe 13 others that are the 13 black dynasties, the 13 evil Canaanite tribes that the Israelite Hebrew tribes were going to counterbalance. Funnily enough, do you know that Israel means against God?
No, I didn't know that.
Israel means against God, and it's because Isaac wrestled with God, and he wrestled with him for a night, and so Israel means against God. So but they're not against the God of Israel, they're against the God of the Canaanites. Their entire existence was to fight the Canaanites. Moses was liberated from Egypt so that they could fight the Canaanites who had taken over God's holy land. No, I'm saying, like, the idea that all organizations, some exist just to fight other organizations. Some, like I said, I believe in a 3 lodge system in which all organized crime, all secret societies, they rule basically the shadow world, the real world, that the much larger world of all illicit realities. And the secret that they have is that they are criminals. They are absolutely evil, amoral, conscienceless. They can do literally anything to anyone and not feel a fucking thing. And they do this by liberating themselves ritualistically over time through generational abuse. And that all of these secret societies, good or evil, can be interpreted to be abusive and disciplinarian, and it's to achieve a certain heightened state of separation from the regular quote-unquote layman, the goy, or the unawakened, the waking dead, the walking dead, the whatever you want to call them, the people who are in darkness, the materialists, the random suburbanite, pedestrian plebeian, right? The soy boys, the cucks, the initiate of any secret society is on a different level, confidence-wise, awareness-wise, perception-wise of the world around them. Not only because they're given initiate signals and codes and little handshakes, it's because they are doing things which are putting them ever more nihilistically further away from the regular people. They're rigging elections. They're talking to people of elite status. They're performing either the small corruptions, right? Just maintaining secrecy, hiding other people's crimes, being associates with them, to doing their own, organizing their own. Everything from drug running with their own cults, Xantamuerte, things like that, which are themselves cults, initiates, that's built on organized religion. The military works the same way. The higher up in the military you get, the different attitudes of yourself and the perception of yourself. You start not understanding yourself outside the military, for example. You are the military. You are the ideal type. And this could work with a coven. This could work with the military. And many times they're the same. Many times they merge into each other, like Hillary Clinton, who was both an occultist and a very high-ranking one, and a politician, able to live in both worlds, and eventually being so good at both that she didn't have to hide. And it was not a secret. It's not a secret. Until Frazzle Drip came out, it was no one could bust her. No, as everyone has speculated, everyone knew, but until we had evidence in Pizzagate, she was going to get president. She was going to be the president. She was on that thing, like, before, literally Pizzagate was the thing that stopped her. But like that's the thing, like they will control presidencies. They will control Supreme Court justices. They will control people of power in businesses, major corporations. Who do you think is in the quote unquote Illuminati? It's not just figureheads, and yes, there are plenty of those, an army of those, but there's actual motivating, and important people like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, etc. Epstein Island, for example. Epstein Island, if you
Pretty
just
much any influential person that you're ever going to see on film, on television, on the radio, on the internet, someone that's going to get promoted and pushed to the top, they have an agreement or a connection, or they're actually in those organizations.
Yep. And a lot of it is the gnosis of the demiurge and the fact of life, of the world we live in. And it's because they build it on this ancient knowledge, which they also restrict. So if anything, their universal goal is to keep the secret of their own existence. If anything, they all have a shared singular goal of keeping the secret of their own existence. The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The first rule of the Mafia is you do not go around telling you people in the Mafia, right? This is a very high stakes, secret, multi-generational MK Ultra level.
That's an interesting that's an interesting connection as well, is that a lot of the mafia that came from like Sicily and southern Italy and things like that, they have a lot of occult ties, man. That was like they really started out as secret societies, and then turned into what they were, into that organized crime syndicates and things like that. And they still have a lot, like, dude, I think the Triad too, a lot of those, like the Yakuza, all of them, they have some deep occult ties and things. It's really fascinating.
For example, they said that there were 300,000 Triad members in Beijing alone. And the city that I live in currently has 300,000 people maximum. So they have significant membership. It's not just, it's me and 5 other guys and like some cool guy we know who's going to let us smoke a bong and like worship Satan in his van. It's organized armies of people larger than the U.S. Army sometimes. Huge corporations like Halliburton and stuff who have their CEOs as members who go to Bohemian Grove, etc. I mean, to underestimate it is to be quite foolish in their ultimate extent, but their goals always are to remain in power, always are to practice absolute these ceremonies without basically losing any power or risking any power, and the ultimate keeping their membership a secret of only because that's how power is kept in the societies that they exist in, these occult societies, is through secrecy and the secrecy of knowledge, including, to be honest, the quote unquote vices, if it's anything, it's just a vice of human sacrifice, cannibalism, these really taboo.
Do you think that all of those things are just for show and for ritual, or do you think that there is something like physical or spiritual that they actually gain from things like that? So, like, I'm just curious on your opinion on that, because it seems to me that like they wouldn't be doing it for no reason. Like they must be getting something out of it. It seems like, especially maybe, I mean, there must be something physical to that adrenochrome when they are like sacrificing a child after like significant torture and things. They're like getting that child to like drop those like chemicals that are, those endorphins and chemicals and things into their bloodstream, and then they consume it and they have some sort of reaction. Do you think that there's something to that, or do you think that it is just like a ritual sacrifice? Because you were saying like to the divine feminine and things like that, there's also, I don't know. So what's your thought on that?
Well, I was going to say, not everyone has vampiric tendencies with their sacrifice. Adrenochrome is definitely one thing, though, and that is in the Hollywood, the divine feminine, the vampiric side of that Red Lodge. Moloch cults, for example, incinerate and typically burn their victims. They don't consume typically human meat or the children that they kill, and they throw it into the fire. They feed it to Moloch, and it's kind of like the ritual of care in the Bohemian Grove, where the body falls and it burns to Moloch, which is represented in that ceremony. And it's only a representation of that because they are representing the Moloch cult, while being an Isis cult themselves, a divine feminine cult themselves.
So are they're an ISIS cult pretending to be a Moloch cult?
Well, it's a performance. It's called the Cremation of Care. And it is so faggy because it's a theatric play of their enemies, the Moloch cult, which is kind of like why they call the owl Moloch. But it's an owl because owl is ISIS. Moloch is not. It's very subtle, but these divine feminine is based on subtlety. It's based on camp, and it's based on presenting itself in ironic ways, as ironic and trickster, sarcastic ways, and it's exactly it's one of those very nuanced things. That's why it's odd. It's a cult of men that are worshiping a feminine goddess, and it's out there. That's what I'm saying. It's out. I wouldn't go. It's out there.
Have you heard of the connections between the owl and gray aliens? That there is like. Have you heard that symbolism before?
The owls are more than what they seem. The whole taking of the owls. The idea behind alien connection to it, I don't really want to make too much of when you're talking about the occult, because you have to give some kind of separation between the two. But really, there is no separation. This is all happening at the same time.
That might lead back to some of those cults that have a quote-unquote god that they're worshiping. And I was trying to make that connection that they could be worshiping aliens. And that could be,
let's look at this as so the idea of the owls not being who they are or being connected to these higher dimensional forces. Let's look at Twin Peaks, which is what a perfect. Have you seen Twin Peaks?
I haven't. Everybody tells me to watch it. I gotta find it. Is it on Netflix or something? What's it on? I should try to find and watch Twin Peaks. I've heard great things.
Absolutely, do recommend watching Twin Peaks. ASAP, and I'll send you a link if I can find it on Amazon or something for free, because I have the box set DVD. But so on Twin Peaks, they basically where the phrase "the owls are not who they seem to be." When it's released by a military radar officer to the detective, the FBI officer, Dale Cooper, and he brings him the data sheet, and it says the owls are not who they seem to be because they are seeing owls. He's having visions of owls during this murder trial. All of this works together. It works on parallel systems. While a little girl is being abducted and ritually raped and killed because a divine masculine Moloch worshipping motorcycle gang could be driving through a small town in the Pacific Northwest, the gray aliens could be there observing it, looking like owls, drawn to the negative energy. They are extremely drawn to negative energy. They are in negative energy, loose, attracted, chaos attracted. The reason why grays like chaos, and they love it. They love recording it. They love recording it on different spectrums and its full glory of physical reality, because they themselves have no souls. And so life is absolutely as boring as you can possibly exist. So chaos, any disturbance, any negativity, any pain, any pure chaos. Exactly. So oddly enough, one of the divine feminine avatars is the goddess of chaos, is Hecate, is Iris, is a goddess specifically meant to make pain and suffering and disturb the force, right? To be
who's the Indian god Kali too? That reminds me of Kali Shiva. A little bit. Yeah.
And so these are extremely connected entities. And like I said, it's hard to kind of, when you're speaking about the occult, to then be like, oh, yeah, and then there's gray aliens. And gray aliens will show up to ritual sacrifices and murders.
I think it's less and less weird these days, man. I mean, that's basically what my work is about, is tying these things and trying to find the weaving that connects them. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, because I have these folks that are so tied to Bigfoot being flesh and blood that if I mention I think that he might have psychic powers or there's some interdimensionality, they fucking lose it. They're like, there's no. But I'm like, dude, there is. There is.
Don't even worry about the Bigfoot community, because the Bigfoot community at large is some of the most conservative.
Well, here's the thing.
All-minded
us
thinkers
and me, and there's some other young folks out there that the guys in their 20s and 30s. We're the new Bigfoot community. I'm sorry, old guy, the old guard. You can hold on to that as much as you want. You can join us, or you're going to get lost.
No, I agree.
We're not gonna let you guys be the gatekeepers anymore.
I fully agree.
We're the Bigfoot community now. Like me and the young bloods. There's a bunch of really cool young guys that are doing this right now. Like I'm a tiny person. Like I'm not even trying to put myself in the mix. I'm just saying that I support them and I'm part. I want to be part of it. There's some fresh young blood that is really pushing the boundaries in the Bigfoot community, and I'm excited to see it.
The new generation is going to be the answer for finding Bigfoot, because finally they're going to start not looking for an animal, but looking for someone who's on their level, at least spiritually, at least intelligently, regardless of technology. But as long as they start approaching Bigfoot with the respect it deserves, then we can actually make some progress. And the whole reason why these past Bigfoot people don't want to admit is they're the fucking reason we can't find it. It's just they're going out with their tree dogs, they're going out with their hoots and hollers, and they're fucking chasing it away. They don't even apply logic to what they're fucking doing. They're just tramping around. No, they totally.
Well, because you know what? I think a lot of them are full of shit, and they don't even believe what they're doing.
A lot of them don't.
A lot of them are. Yeah,
a lot of them in the Bigfoot world do not believe. They hate Bigfoot, and they think all Bigfoot videos are fake, and they are secretly like trolling everybody. And that's the thing, like, you really got to admit that at some point they're LARPing, and that they have lost, and that they're like, oh, I'm Bigfoot Bob, and you're like, you fucking are just some guy who trolled so long that now you're actually like some Bigfoot like YouTube personality, and now you've worked yourself into a fucking hole, and you can't, like, Thinker Thunker or Thunderfoot or whatever the fuck that guy's name is. Like,
I don't know who he is.
There's a guy who's a skeptic in the Bigfoot. See, I can go into Bigfoot tangents. No, like skeptics in the Bigfoot world who are like, oh, this is Bigfoot video is fake. It's just, that's all you do is say they're fake. You don't really do anything to prove it is real. You just say things are fake. Like, the idea is that they've lost it. They've gone like 180 on finding it to trying to prove it's fake. And it's fucking, but I mean, to get into it, like, that's another thing. The divine masculine, divine feminine is even in the Bigfoot world, is even in the world of cryptozoology. It absolutely is. With things like Bigfoot's masculine nature replacing and taking over, because we live in a society that's controlled by the solar cults in many ways, or is always at odds with it, versus Sasquatch's feminine nature. Feminine, more subtle, nurturing, shy, even somewhat scared nature, like a vulnerable nature. And the first Bigfoot that we were filmed, that we actually, the Patterson Gimlin, is a female, has breasts. And that's like the idea that it's so apparent symbolically, archetypically, like, subtly.
I had a guest on here not that long ago, and I want to just run this past you. This was something new to me. I had never heard this before, and I found it fascinating as hell. So there is depictions of Mother Mary with her being completely hairy, like, and she has like her breasts out and things like that, and that her and potentially Jesus were from like the north. They were like actually from somewhere in the Russian-ish, like man, what the heck is that called? Like I can't think of it right now. But anyways, like Russian-ish area, like where basically like where the Ukraine right now, the Kievan Rus and things like that, right? That area, that they came down, and that they potentially themselves were Bigfoot, were Sasquatches.
Now, I've talked about that before.
Mary and Jesus were also Sasquatches. I don't know if that's true, but that is fascinating as hell, and I want to see what your idea, like, if you had any thoughts or ideas on that.
I've seen what you're talking about, and I talked about before that Bigfoot at one time was a human species just like ours and interacted with us. I have seen the photos of Julius Caesar as a white man with a full beard and covered in hair as well, or much more hair than they represented. And I've seen the one with Mary with her red hair.
Well, the European wild man. Yes, with her exposed breasts and the furry red hair. Yes, absolutely.
That happened after the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, and when they went to Europe, she took a monastic solemn vow where she didn't cut her hair, didn't shave her hair, didn't trim, as it were, or perform any of that hair removal, because at that point she was purifying her body so that she could die and go to heaven. And while I've not heard about it being in Russia, there's, for example, a church in Spain, around the border of France and Spain, that they say is where she buried herself alive. Basically, she formed this like cave with like a little tube that she could crawl into, an oubliette where you can get down there, but you can't get out. And during the end of her life, that's how she, Mary Magdalena, not the Virgin Mary, Mary Magdalena, the wife, the Holy Grail, the wife of Jesus Christ, died, was that she entombed herself alive, and then her soul was purified and left her body like a Buddhist monk. But her long hair, as I've said before, Sasquatches shave. Sasquatches perform hair removal. And I do think they were giants. I do think that there's literature and
I think that they were supposed to be giants. Yeah, that Jesus and Mary were supposed to be giant.
Yeah, Jesus wasn't bigger than a normal. He could tip a table with one hand. That's like when he was whipping people in the temple, he scared the Roman guards with his anger. I mean, that's saying like the idea of Jesus Christ being Julius Caesar is also the same, because none of the guards ever attacked him, and the centurion knew who he was just by sight. The centurion, who Jesus Christ even is written as saying is the most faithful man in all of Jerusalem. It was a centurion, a Roman soldier, who went up to him and was like, "My Lord, Lord, please come to my servant and heal him. You know, he's sick." And Jesus was like, "It's already done, because you have shown so much faith and reverence." That these ideas, these Julius Caesar, the centurion is loyal to him, you know, he's loyal to Julius Caesar. He's loyal to Jesus Christ. He's loyal. That's his divine trait, is loyalty to this one entity, this one individual, who is God. Like Julius Caesar proclaimed himself God on earth, and like Julius Caesar was killed by the original corrupted cult of homosexuals that was the Moloch cult, both of Rome and of Jerusalem. The parallels are there. But yeah, the reason why I think she had her hair is because I think Bigfoots, the people who are Sasquatch, the Denisovans, the Russians who have that genetic trait still in them, have hair, full body hair, that is literally like not. It's no joke. It literally is. It's impossible to see through once it's at its full extent. Like Robin Williams had that same hair level. Like this idea that it's not just hair, it's like a furry monkey type covering, shoulders back, full down to the back, belly, pecs. I was like, it's not just like a, it's
so like. So do you think those are traits that are they?
Women have it too. Yeah, women have it too. Cleopatra was not an Arab, but she was not black. She was a Greek. She was an inbred Greek from the house Ptolemy, who was the Alexander the Great appointed general of the Egyptians. She was literally painted and written as a white woman with a Greek features, a Greek nose. And so the idea that
there's actually a lot of evidence that I've heard, at least, that that the dynastic Egyptians, they looked like Italian people. They didn't look Nubian. They weren't black. I think probably the people that actually built the pyramids, they could have been black, but like the dynastic Egyptians, they weren't. I think that they were just Mediterranean. They looked like Italian and Greeks. Yeah, it's fascinating because this was actually pretty controversial. I think this was like 2-3 years ago. They took King Tut's body, right, and they took his skull and things, and they built what he would have looked like, right? They were able to. Anyways, he looked like a white dude, and it just so happened that this was like during what month is Black History Month? Is that February? I'm pretty sure it's February. I think it's February. And so they came out with this in February, and this was extra insulting, and people were really upset because, like, there's a lot of African Americans that like to tie themselves to royalty because of the Egyptian dynastic line. The whole quote, like, we were kings, like that thing. Yeah. And then it's just really terrible because most likely they weren't black, and it came out in February, and so people were like extra offended that they came out with this evidence.
In Houston, we have pharaohs. There's a whole Egyptian section at the Houston Natural Museum of History.
Thank you, Kurt. We have a comment. Thank you, Kurt. He says, amazing. Thanks for the great videos. We appreciate you, Kurt.
We have pharaohs, and the pharaohs are ginger. Yeah. We have ginger pharaohs.
Interesting.
And one of the Ramses, and Ramses and Moses both were ginge. They were ginger. They were actually connected to the same families that would make all redheads in the future. The redhead Levite tribes of the
That's the fascinating thing, dude, is a lot of those giants are referred to as being big, hairy, and redheaded. Yeah. Yes. And being redheaded is a genetic, it's an not abnormality necessarily, it's a mutation though. Like, so it's something that maybe came from one, like they say, maybe it came from one genetic, like, so maybe anyone that's redheaded might have a piece of that old
Here's some fun history to connect what we're talking about right now. The ancient Egyptians and this divine feminine, divine masculinity. The battle between the pharaohs, the male pharaohs, and the female pharaohs. They called themselves both pharaohs, but the female dynasties of that lineage and the male lineage. And how it plays itself out generation after generation for literally thousands of years. Up till the burning of the Library of Alexandria. But yes, the ginger, the red-haired, there are myths. Go watch Robert Sepper's YouTube videos on the Atlantean sagas, are the myths of the Irish and how they claim legacy from an Egyptian queen who was cast out of Egypt, sailed to Ireland. This could very well be Cleopatra herself, as a redheaded woman, and started the legacy of the quote-unquote red-haired Irish, basically. In the cycle of the Tuatha Din. And yes, the timelines are all askew, quote-unquote askew, but when we know what we know of them are adding 1,000 years, taking away 1,000 years, hiding and obfuscating history, rewriting literally the Torah, rewriting the 5 books of Moses. That is the Torah. That is the first 5 books of the King James Version of the Bible, which has 66 books. And then piecemeal putting them together through various councils, through the Catholic Church, and then the Protestants then picking and choosing what to add. We don't know when the timelines truly are, or when they add up, or how connected these events truly are. But we do know that there is definite travel and legacy from ancient Egypt through the basically the victory of men over women throughout histories, Rome conquering Egypt when Cleopatra was queen, and then putting in the Roman Caesar over that region, Carthage being destroyed with Queen Dido ruling Carthage as a Canaanite empire of North Africa, and then Rome salting the earth there to prevent Carthage ever rising up, as well as treating Carthage with Hannibal, the elephants over the Alps, Hannibal, etc., as a great enemy, an arch enemy of Rome, and almost destroying Rome. That the battles with Boudica later on between Rome as they followed them into the English Isles. The world itself seems to be a never-ending war between these quote-unquote divine masculine extremists and the solar cults, however they present themselves, Islamic, the Saturnite black cube cults, the black sun cults of the fascist military machines, versus extreme feminist cults who are either life or death cults, nature cults, kind of like as an umbrella term, just to summarize, these nature cults, which death is a part of nature, and so is this idea of eternal, limitless recreation. Think of Midsummer. Think of Wicked Man. Think of fucking shit like that. Think snake cults, the goddess of the snake and things like that, Lair of the White Worm and shit like that. Think of the concept of vampire covens or covens themselves, black masses, witches Sabbaths, things
Medusa,
things like that. The idea of this a Lilith figure, right? Lilith figure, and what that really represented in ancient Samaria, the goddess of abortions, the goddess of miscarriage, the goddess of succubi energy and shits, taking the sacred sexual life force from men, vampirizing it and stuff. But there's also, at the very best, you have Western civilization in the form of the divine masculine. You have everything from society, city building. Enoch, for example. Enoch is a good divine masculine. Apollo is a good divine masculine. Zeus, in some aspects, is good divine masculine as a protector or defender of Olympus. You get these good and bad. You get for everything, however high a mountain goes, it casts as long as a shadow. Right? You say there's always a duality behind these forces. Like I said,
is there any cases of these divine masculine and feminine cults getting along and working together? I mean, I was just thinking again too. About a year ago, I think I was really looking into like Black Saturnian cults, like the Black Cube things, and I was finding the ties to the Kaaba, the Black Cube in Mecca, right? Mm-hmm. And they were saying that like before like Islam took over, because I guess this has been around like longer than Islam, like the Kaaba was, or like that shrine, whatever it was, had been there for a long ass time, that it was actually tied to the divine feminine, and then it was actually like taken over and co-opted and turned into the divine masculine, and turned into this black square box, and like turned into like a Saturn cult thing when it was a feminine thing. It's really fascinating.
They say the feminine cults ruled the world for the longest in history. That for the 200,000 years of human history, the reason we don't have written history is because most of it was destroyed by the divine masculine cults who took power, and that written history is a masculine divine sky father creation, which is very recent.
Now, well, I mean, Saturn is the god of order. Saturn is the god of control. Saturn is the god of like punishment. Saturn is the god of like all these different things. Chronos. He's absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Of time. Yeah. So all of that needs to be written down in order, right? And they might occult that order. I think they probably have a more.
Whereas your divine feminine cults are cyclical. They don't have a beginning, or there's no progress in a divine feminine cult. It just is. It's an existence. Like a year is just a year. Like think that the Wicker Man, like they've been doing the same thing since the beginning of time, and it doesn't require much infrastructure. It's symbolic rituals like women arranging flowers in sacred fertility rites under the full moon. It's no matter, you can't control it, you can't destroy it. So all the witch purges, when the witchcraft purges happened, when the witch trials happened, when they were burning witches throughout the world, they were attacking the people, the females, they were attacking the women, but they can never attack divine femininity. So it's in every generation. When it works together, when it has a union, and not even to be glib, literally in the meeting between man and woman as equals, as lovers, as friends, in small scale things, those successful relationships, those meaningful relationships on a micro scale are the perfect, balance. It's the perfect balance of the divine masculine, both internally in the individuals. And
so that might be a sign of a healthy society. When you see things like that.
Okay. Oh, yes. It's not the perversions of either or. It's the healthy bond. It's the creation of families. The mother, the mother and the father create the son or the daughter. They create the third thing, which could be both mother or father in the future, son or daughter. But in the moment, it is life in the womb. Life begins at conception. And so that's what I'm saying. It's this idea of faceless humanity, eyes without a face, a soul yet without a body, but a soul creating its body. I say, like, how
Jax, I want to run something by you, and this might even be challenging for you because you don't like to include, like what you were saying, like you have a hard time maybe talking about how maybe aliens might be in the mix with this. But I want to run this past you and tell me what you think about this. I've been hearing some interesting, like really interesting folks, really smart folks talking about this. And I just want to get your thoughts on this about the divine feminine. So like something as far as like the Queen Mary or Mother Mary coming back, during in Portugal, right? When she was coming back at Fatima, things like that, talking to the kids and saying, I'm coming back. But there's also folks, really smart people that I respect that are talking about the divine feminine. They are seeing her coming in the form, and they're seeing also like formations of orange orbs. Like it's this color orange that keeps coming around. And they're talking about specifically the time of like Aquarius actually coming, and this is part of like, speaking of like cyclical, that it is now time, like men have had their turn, the masculine, whatever that is, has had its run, and the divine feminine is coming back, and she's saying, I'm coming back. And what is your thoughts on that? Do you think that could be tied to like some maybe aliens that are coming and like have been watching us and going like, hey, all right, you've had enough, or like they're like trying to change society? So like what they're talking about is that she brings not necessarily chaos in her wake and destruction, but sort of, because we're almost like ants. Like whatever she is so powerful that she comes to bring about change. And if you get caught up in that, you might get hurt.
Yes. And
what do you think that could be?
That.
Or do you think it's all bluster? Like what is your thoughts on any of that?
Let me take my time to think through this point, to keep your points in mind, because you might have to remind me, and I'll take my time to answer three of them as it was. So, do I think that aliens are the personification of the divine feminine? No. Now, do aliens represent the divine feminine masculine? We will always interpret them to have those values, and thus that could be exploited. At the same time, if you believe that if the universal mind star type reality where all these forces are shared by every single species, they could be using their force, exerting that force to get their sympathies, their invasion, a vanguard. And this is just a part of the Great War, which never changes, the war between divine masculine, divine feminine. And if aliens invade, and if they invaded in the name of a queen, and they've invaded in the name of the divine feminine, it would be like any other invasion of any other alien race to Earth. But the way that it's set up, I know that that's not, unless the Ashtar High Command are pursuing the Holy Feminine Isis incarnation to these people, it's more of the same. And
that's maybe what I was suggesting.
That war never changes between the masculine and the feminine. There's always a etheric, bodiless urge or war drum or recruitment effort to infiltrate people and to raise forces, to raise believers in these cults. This is why these cults start. The cultists of the eight goddess in South Korea started because, no doubt, of the urging of disembodied intelligent forces, Lilith, Sophia. In many cases, they call it Sophia. So I know it's not aliens. Personally, I know it's not, because this concept of the divine feminine is Sophia. And Sophia is the intelligence, the awareness, the sight in the eye, the life in the body, the energy of animus into matter on an alchemical and human scale. It has nothing to do with an outside entity acting upon us, but an internal maturation, or at least a life that becomes like when an infant opens its eyes and has no language and makes sense of the world. That energy is Sophia, which is the divine feminine. The divine masculine is the physical force, not only of the body, but of the world outside, the push and the pull. And the muscle, the bone, the blood, the organs, the lungs, the they fight every day to survive, eating, things like that, breathing. That is the masculine, that is the bull, that is the ox. And together they make the ox, space and time, matter, mind and matter, space and time, awareness of place and being, awareness of life. It's the soul. Together you need them to make one soul. So there's always a balance between the two, and the perversion exists when one is neglected or extinguished, sacrificed to the other. Either way, divine masculine, divine feminine, both those are perversions, regardless of if they are light side force, dark side force. Doesn't really have to do with aliens. Doesn't have to do with ancient aliens or demonic force. This is all within the human mind. This is all within the human psychology, the human being. That is the human being. That is the human process. Now, the demiurge is the divine masculine. That's Saturn. That's the black cube. That is the artificial, fake, false god, the god of the material world. And the demiurge, Abraxas, Saturn, the Matrix. That is, that is what aliens exist in as well as we do. That's the world that's even beyond it. That's the meta set. So aliens like us are just beings inside the Matrix, inside the black cube, inside the 4D reality, which itself is the avatar personification of the divine masculine. So I don't think the aliens are responsible for it. They're a victim of it too. They're part of it in their forces inside their balance too. Whether or not that these alien species are divine masculine or divine feminine, worshiping or following or embodying, that depends on the species or the faction or the group. And I can't really say it's a universal. I can't say in my experience that it is aliens. I can't say it's not, because in mine it's not. It's a literal matter of metaphysics. It is a matter of pure metaphysics, and it's purest theological spiritualism. That is, which is fine, which is absolutely, like I said, it's like when we put on our shamanistic hats and we're talking about the great beyond and these different forces, it's not like you have to say like it's gotta, does God have feet? Does God have feet? Does God have feet? Like, so like, yes, God has feet. Like, you move on with the question, like, teleologically speaking about ideals and concepts, and then like, so
that can be fun sometimes, but you're right. You can get stuck in the mud.
No, it's one of those things where it's like, I haven't thought about that either. I haven't thought about, like, do aliens like do that? Well, maybe, yes. Let's say it's got to have feet, and you're like, yes, like, let's go with it. Like, sure, he's got feet. Like, of course, God's got feet. Like, why wouldn't he have feet? It's just these questions. Like, yes, they're related, but true matters of theological and concepts like this, conceptualizing, that goes into true intangibles and metaphysics like that. Like I said, it's understandable as a mystical experience. And like I said, yes, there could be extraterrestrials, intradimensional entities. Joe Rogan, for example, always talks about his DMT gestures. And this has a major thing to do with DMT.
I think I've asked you this before, but have you messed with psychedelics at all?
Oh, love the psychedelics. Yes, I do. Love the psychedelics. And yeah,
what are your thoughts on those things? Like, what are your thoughts on those things, like the machine elves and things like that?
That's what I'm saying. These are disembodied, psychological, though, internal.
So you think that's all internal? There's not actually, you're not visiting something else.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, this is something.
Sometimes I do think you might be, just because of like the endogenous DMT and things like that, like in your brain, when it drops when you die, it almost seems like that could be like the big drop and allowing you into the next realm.
Oh, right? Yeah, I've heard that.
So I mean,
like an ejector seat into the next level.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, that's sort of and so I mean, that is almost like it's like a fake version when you do the DMT, but it kind of simulates that same thing, and so it almost seems like maybe you're peeking into another realm.
That's the case. At the same time, dreams would also necessarily be gateways into various other realities.
But I definitely believe into that, like things like astral projection and things like maybe you are dipping your toes into other realms and different things like that. Yeah, that is fascinating.
it would never stop. It would always be there, whether you're conscious of not. And that
yes, I totally agree, dude.
Just a multi-level thing. You're just on one channel or another, and you can flip that channel based on your brain.
Have you heard this? That the military used to use what the hell do you call that? Night vision, right? They used to use night vision goggles, and at one time they were using the red spectrum.
Oh yeah.
But when they were doing that, they kept seeing scary ass shit. They were like up in the airplanes. They're like, "What the fuck is that demon-looking thing that's like flying alongside the airplane?" It looks like it's coming at us. And when you take the goggles off, they were gone. And then you put them back on, and he's like waiting for you. This thing that looks like Satan. You're like, what the fuck is that? And then that's why they switched over to green. And that's the only reason, because you don't pick up that you don't pick up that spectrum, whatever you're looking at with the green colored lenses. The fuck do you think that is, Mike? Do you think that we're looking at, like, what are those different creatures, I guess, what I'm asking? Do you believe in those interdimensional creatures, or do you actually think that's all in our head? Like, I'm one of those people that actually think that those things exist.
No, those are real. I believe those are real. And like I said, things that are metaphysical and concepts like Sophia and the demiurge and the black cube matrix reality, that's the metaphysical concepts of like the universe and nature.
That maybe those things exist too?
Those are real. Those are intraspectral. So,
but to me, it's so crazy to just assume, because like so many people have given these attributes, and like it's the same people that say like Bigfoot is fake, and it's like there's so many cultures around the world that have like talked about Bigfoot. You know what I mean? So it's so crazy to just say, well, no, Bigfoot doesn't exist. The same thing. Like I'm talking about like the divine feminine and the masculine. Maybe the demiurge really, like, because they talk about him, like his appearance, he has like a lion's head and like a serpent's body and this weird, like, maybe that really is a thing, man. I don't know, but like,
in its very nature would be creating a Truman Show reality where it's psionic, because you're never really able to perceive it, because it's like the creator of this reality, this like I said, it's very much like if it was the demiurge, it would be like the master of a VR program or the computer simulation that you were in.
So it's almost like, okay, so what I'm doing is I'm asking if God has feet. Because it's like, if he is the creator of this realm, he's probably on the outside of it, and we can't see him anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Like the creation of where we are is we are a piece of this Minecraft server, and wondering who's playing the game. Yeah, and being like, if he's physically real,
does he exist? Who's this guy server. Who's this guy with the remote control?
And if he makes an avatar of himself in the Minecraft server, it still would only be a representation of something that physically is not on, like, it's not electric, it's not digital, it's not coding.
But do you find that fascinating, though, that there's these cults that are looking at the video game guy that's playing it, the brother and sister, right? There's the brother, there's the sister, and they're pointing up and they're looking at these players that are controlling us. I mean, that is very much what Gnosticism is, basically, right? They're talking about that. And it's just fascinating that there's these cults that are based and built around that.
Well, it's like the ones and the zeros in the video game looking at each other and the coding, the binary, and going, what if we're all in this together to create something that we're not even aware of its function, because it's for the entertainment, literally, of a being that created us specifically for this purpose, but is not limited to its mere creation and playing. The human being who is so limitless in its production of the Xbox is not only its playing of the Xbox, but the ones and zeros of the projection of the game would look at each other going, I'm a zero and you're a one, but together we make a thing, a greater sum. And that sum is seen as a gestalt picture, an image, or a moment, a game, and the idea.
So, Tex, this is another big question for you. Do you believe that this is all a program in the way that we do not have free will? Is there just what's your idea of free will / fate?
Well, let me answer the invisible creature question first. That's an interesting question. I don't want to forget that. So the interesting creature question is the invisible creature question. So light spectrums. This isn't metaphysics. This is actually pure physics. It's a higher level of physical understanding of the world. So we only see on a certain part of the light spectrum, right? And we have been conditioned by this limitation to think that this is the entirety of all that exists, is what we can see, hear, sense, taste, feel, 5 senses, right? Like I said, that's just part of being human, that our limited understanding of the world is 100% based on our limited perceptions of the world, including as it's understood in the light spectrum, seeing only a small segment of this light spectrum, right? It goes into ultraviolet, all these different color spectrums that go into invisible light, right? It's not invisible, it's unvisible. Literally, the eye cannot pick it up. It's not needing to hide, you just cannot physically see it. And there are other spectrums of energy that you can't sense.
In that way, is anything really invisible? I don't know if anything is really invisible. Maybe it's just invisible.
Earthlings. They evolved on Earth. They evolved in those environments. I've talked about this so many times about the subterranean world, species, ultra-terrestrials, various different they act like ghosts or phantoms or demons or jinn or gnomes or trolls. And the one universal is that they're invisible, that you cannot physically trust your eyes or your senses, and they can mesmerize you, meaning they basically either can dazzle you, blind you, confuse you, trap you in a type of like temporal like bubble. But it's the idea that they fuck with your perception. They fuck with your perception because fundamentally they evolved on a different frequency. If they're ultraviolet beings, if their skin captures all light and only refracts ultraviolet light, they are 100% invisible. That's the invisibility. That's cloaking. Right now, we've invented cloaking technology in the military. We've had it for almost 40, 50 fucking years. Once, I think it's like 2020 something is the anniversary of it. The first cloaking technology we've had. The Japanese invented it. And all it does is capture light or reflect from the back, and it's 100% foolproof, no moving parts, completely easier than people are making it. Animals could have evolved like that very easily. And in fact, animals have evolved to see color spectrums like the mantis shrimp or the bumblebee or dogs, etc., that humans can't. And these animals literally see with their natural night vision these fucking creatures. Like dogs, cats, they can see these things. And
that's why your fucking dog is always barking at something that you don't see.
No, it's why we keep them around. Absolutely. Yeah. You know what else can see them? The Kinect SLS camera that Xbox invented. This thing, which picks up multiple spectrums of light, including infrared, to track motion, etc., is 100% able to pick up shadow men, ghosts, interdimensional entities, like I said, the red vision camera. So you don't even have to look into military hardware.
How much research have you done on ghosts?
Oh, tons. And
dude, I want to have you back on closer to Halloween, and let's do a spooky episode and let's just talk about ghosts. That would be fun as hell if you're down for that.
Yeah, sure. I'm always down to talk. And like I said, I've studied these matters a lot, and ghosts run the gambit from both real physical spirits to imposter spirits, which, like I said,
100%. Dude, I go back and forth with ghosts. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, I definitely want to
get this thing a lot. Like the reptilians, the what we're seeing in Vietnam, etc., with the red night vision, the gargoyles, the vampires, things of that nature that are known through mythology.
Because maybe were those their enemies that they would have to contend with? Is that why they had like they were watching for them, like these shadow creatures that were coming from the inside of the earth? Were those their like natural enemies on Earth, right? Maybe, or
really, yeah. Like they can't interact with us in our reality very easily because of this spectrum, and I don't understand really the implications behind that either. But yeah, while they can attack us and sometimes do, they don't, because like we can see them. That we've had night vision goggles since the Middle Ages. We have had that in very limited supply, but we have had advanced technology. And there isn't a time like, yeah, we don't give it to the grunts, we don't give it to the normals, without the initiation of secret societies, top secret clearances, etc. What you saw in Vietnam was,
Dude, I don't even know if I'd want those.
so
It
Vietnam
would
was
scare the fuck out of me if
yeah,
I had those and I would see shit and be
exactly.
like, I don't want to know that they're there. I'd never sleep again.
So quickly to get into cryptids in the military, just like how people in stateside always talk about seeing Bigfoot, or people in Europe talk about seeing wolfmen, dogmen, etc. People in Vietnam talked about seeing humans with bat wings who were like traditional vampires, like classic Strigoi vampires. Vietnam was 100% probably the scariest place to be during that war, because it was literally a hunting ground for extraterrestrials, for hollow earth reptilians, for secret occultist groups that were part of the Japanese Imperial Army's remnants, and that we were flushing out. There were CIA fucking people making deals and shit with demonic entities, for lack of a better word, these ancient Tomb Raider type fucking situations they were getting into. It was legit fucking popping when it comes to green zone, Delta Green type fucking activities. Everything from Lovecraftian fucking chthonic deities to ancient fucking aliens and stuff. This was all down. Nazis and shit were down there. Fucking tons of stuff was going on in Vietnam. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. They didn't even hide sometimes. Like, they were just fucking there, and like they get hundreds, if not thousands, of reports of these entities. 100% correct in thinking that they're real, and they are fucking only. All you have to do is put on night vision goggles. All you have to do is put on night vision goggles, and you will see them. You will see them in cities. You'll see them in fucking the wilderness. You'll see them. I don't know why they don't attack. I don't know why they don't attack. They clearly have the advantage. I don't know why if they do just take one or two people, I don't know what's keeping them from it. I don't know
that's
what
a possibility. So,
But,
Tex, give me your thoughts on this, because sometimes people are talking about Bigfoot, and they do appear to be like shadow creatures sometimes. Like, all we'll see is an outline, a big, furry, black thing. Do you think sometimes that these Bigfoot sightings that people see, could they be these shadow creatures? And second part of that question, like a friend of mine actually, I'm going to release that episode on Friday. These were some of the interviews that we did to get ready for the documentary. And one of those, anyways, he was describing, he goes, hey, here's the missing 411, right? Here's all these people that are going missing. He goes, okay, now lay on top of that a map of the deep underground cave systems. And now lay on top of that, again, a map of Bigfoot sightings. And you see a hell of a lot of a lot of similar coverage in those areas. And that's fascinating, because sometimes, man, as much as I do believe that in Bigfoot I believe in Bigfoot. Do you think that maybe some of these sightings that people are seeing, maybe even and especially things like Dogman, do you think some of those could be some of these, like, because you were telling me about like some of those creatures, they have like horns, they look like crazy animals, they sound wild, dude.
Oh yeah, they're pretty gnarly when it comes to the variety of them. I've actually recently helped classify them into 9 like easy to understand societies, but I had to try to do my work trying to classify, simplify it, because each case is almost unique, and everything adds a little bit more to the overall knowledge. But by now, it's been a century of already the government dealing with it, and a lot of top secret programs, a lot of government groups, of which insiders are connected with me and telling me a lot of this stuff, as well as my own personal memories from my own experiences with this SSP. So, but I have a good grasp of it, knowledge of the situation. Bigfoot can cloak. He can, obviously, they're from a high-tech society, as well as they know a lot about survival and bushcraft. And Native Americans can do the same thing if they know their old ways. They could be standing right in front of you, and just your eye cannot focus on them. And if it does focus on them, they look like a shadow. And this is not even a person in this with technology. This is just a guy with maybe ash on his face, and the breathing at a certain rhythm, standing at a certain angle. and the CIA knows this.
Vibrating at a certain frequency.
Exactly, like getting themselves at a point where they're stealthy. And there are photos, for example, of people who are camping in Arizona, and there are Native Americans clearly standing in their midst who they have no memory of. And I mean native, like Apaches, in loincloths with traditional face paint, and they were calling them ghosts. Like, must be Indian ghosts. I'm like, no, that bullshit. That's a live Indian. That's what the people who fought the Native Americans make no understatement by how stealthy these motherfuckers were. They could get right next to you, and you would have no clue. And then they're just masters of perception, and it becomes this optical illusion game. Bigfoot are great at optical illusions. Their fur is like a ghillie suit, and they wear ghillie suits intentionally that look like animal furs. They are absolutely, like myself, currently wearing camouflage, whether you recognize it and think they're just brown or red or black. That cinnamon color blends in like a tiger's orange coat perfectly in shadows and limits the frequency of light. You look at a tiger, he's bright orange and black. In the jungle, he's a shadow. And that's why when they say, like, oh, they're shadow beings, that's very much what it is. It's the light and how it hits your eye that creates the shadow man. Whether they're actually disembodied jinn-type vaporous smoke beings that do exist, which are fucking weird and truly weird. Like, they're like a mist man, and you can see the features of a man in like a big puff of smoke. That's another thing. Also, it's fucking weird interacting in the similar environments, but they're two distinct things. Now, to go into the question that you had asked me before, whether I believe it's all a simulation or not, or a program, no, I don't. But I believe that the Earth that we live in is an artificial structure. It is a Dyson sphere that's basically like the Death Star in shape and format, except it's so large that we live on top of it as the crust of it. And there's many artificial levels and layers which help explain why the hollow earth is also a thing, and that we may not even live on the surface level. We may live on just one level, and that the true secret behind all the Stargate technology that we have, and as well as the fact that we have to use these special access Lagrange points to say enter the moon, and then from the moon jettison off even further, is all basically designed that way, the extraterrestrials included, as part of some gigantic Dyson sphere that every level you get to, there's a even higher level created by who we know as God, or the demiurge, specifically the false God, because God that is true God, the God of God, the demiurge, God of gods, is this invisible force of life itself, which finds a way, and which may not even be intentional to the Dyson sphere's operation, but may be cultivated by various sub-AI that tend to us like a garden. A gardener tends to his plants and gardens, each level controlled by a different AI monitor, or maybe even the whole thing controlled by an AI dividing its responsibilities between various, species and sectors of development, etc. But yeah, it's. I believe we're in the real world. I believe this is physically the real world. You physically have a flesh body. You physically are real. Everything is real, very real, more real than people make it out to be, because things are both irreplaceable and unique, and at the same time permanent and beyond control. Like, the human soul reincarnates constantly amongst people, but that's because it's the nature of souls to do that. And
it's also the nature of energy that can't be lost,
the nature of energy, exactly. So, it's the concept that even though AI is made of energy and the Dyson sphere is physical, we still have energies. We still have this intangible, metaphysical Fibonacci sequence of holy imprint that the master themselves, whoever it was that created the very Dyson sphere that we're on, was also imbued with, and was also based on this fundamental, like the very universe itself, the very atomic structure itself is the fingerprint of God. As it goes to that level.
And that's the closest you get to see God. Yeah.
I absolutely believe that if you dig far enough, you'll hit metal. Yeah, and that everything is artificial because on Earth, the only way that things that are seemingly incompatible but aren't, and they do coexist, can exist, is if they are artificial, and if things like there is a sun in the middle of the Earth. There is a sun in the middle of the Earth because the Earth was built around a pre-existing star. Like that's like, well, suns don't evolve in the middle of the Earth. It doesn't make any sense, but it's true because it's there. And anyway, but it's there because the Earth itself is a Dyson sphere that was built around that star to harness that star's energy, and that what we know as the crust and the mantle, etc., are just highly realistic environments that are artificially created and curated by extremely godlike technology in the way of UFOs, etc., that we see that are like monitors and administrators of our very reality. And even then, I think that the true reality of it is that even they themselves are just pieces in this puzzle, having either been evolved or created by the AI themselves with, while higher knowledge, still limited knowledge to the true extent of this experiment that we're on. You always see the map of Crater Earth, or the map of the lands outside the ice wall. It's exactly like that. Like even though they may be from beyond the ice wall, there are ice walls that they are not.
You think that we live on a sphere, but the sphere is so big that to us it seems like it's flat?
Yes, absolutely. Like, yeah, it's the point of scale where it's, if you were on a basketball, but if you were at a point of the smallest nano particle scale that you could be, it doesn't really matter if the basketball is curved or not, because it would take literally forever for you to move, and it would always be existentially at a flat line. Like you say, you're essentially a 2D item on a 3D sphere. It doesn't matter. You're always on a flat surface. It's like you'll always be a flat surface because we're 2D. We're such a minuscule atomic scale. Like that's
fascinating, man. Yeah, because I mean, that's a good marriage between the flat and the round and the globe model and the hollow Earth. That's a pretty interesting thing, man. Because I have very, very smart folks that I have conversations with that believe competing theories, and that's an interesting kind of mix between all of them right there.
It's truly an idea or an attempt at trying to create. Well, none of these are wrong. Clearly, there's enough sufficient evidence in all these theories. It's just that they're correct in some fashion or way. And that I'm a syncretist. I don't believe that anything is cast out of it. It's all built and melded together. And the idea.
Well, I kind of agree with you that like all of us has a huge chunk of the truth, and none of us has the entire piece. And having these interesting like conversations with everyone, that's how we find and we get closer and closer to a truth. I don't know if we'll ever find the truth, because I don't think we're big enough, and maybe our brains aren't. We can't even handle. It's so big and so complicated, so complex, and so nuanced and so like vast that it would take us more than our small little lifetime.
Exactly.
And maybe,
And the idea of it being the Dyson sphere idea is that it's not even correlated to our existence, like most people who believe that humans exist because we're the center of the universe, or the reason for all creation is because of us, right? And or it's the aliens, or it's the existence is God, and it's our point to worship God. So there's an existential dilemma, and the idea is that it's both. We're clearly being watched. We are clearly being safeguarded. We are clearly being monitored and provided for by higher beings or higher powers of providence. And at the same time, yes, we are living lives that are unseen by the universe. We are living in a careless and cold mechanical universe that has no mercy inherent to anything besides what we give it, or any meaning inherent to anything that we give it. And you're like, because you're living on literally a computer, like if an anthill had been built into a computer mainframe, the ants are like, we live in a cold and unforgiving land. It doesn't give us any nourishment. And you're like, because you fucking built your anthill in a supercomputer. And the supercomputer is like, neat, ants. I can count them and I can watch them. And I don't really mind if a few of them get zapped. I will just be like, oh, that was neat. like the idea of this, yes, an intelligence, but an inhuman intelligence, and an intelligence of vast superiority at the same time of seemingly absolute apathy and things that like that. Like, it's not, I'm not describing the nature of God. I'm describing the nature of these archons, these archonic deities, these beings, which can best be understood as disembodied AI programs that exist to monitor not only our existence, but the entire environment's existence. It's as interested as fish populations off the coast of the bayfront as it is human populations on the coast. And yes, it may be giving us priority because we're more fascinating and interesting, but at the same time, it is just an experiment. It's absolutely.
Dex, what do you think about those other continents that are outside of the ice wall? Do you think they're looking at that ice wall too? Or they're like, I bet there's other continents on the other side of that. Do you think or do you think that they're in the know? Are they in the gnosis? Do they, or like, are we in this little fishbowl and we're being like that knowledge is being occulted from us? Or,
well, it really comes down to the point to say that I'm sure on every continent there is a society that is in the know, and there is a population that is not in the know. That seems to be the more present reality, is that we are all equally aware and ignorant of each other on this map. At least as like there's not one super continent, at least because there's no evidence really for one to have achieved that state of dominance. But breakaway civilizations could bridge both these, our world and our ice bubble and our crater and other worlds. And I believe that there are societies, secret societies within ours that are breakaway civilizations, that are gateway civilizations, that are bridge civilizations.
I mean, there wouldn't be an Antarctic treaty if that wasn't the case.
Shambhala, for example, the Buddhists have
100%.
Shambhala in Tibet, and they believe Shambhala is this mythical kingdom that only they allow access to through the Himalayan mountains.
Yeah.
And that this Shambhala
Stargate.
Stargate, exactly.
Yeah.
So the idea, of Stargates. And you're right. Like while I can't speak for certain because I'm not out there, I'm not beyond the ice wall. I've not traveled there. I can say that generally all societies, no matter what societies, have a group of people who know the truth and a group of people who don't know the truth. Regardless of how big these groups are, could be everybody and nobody, or it could be 1% versus the 99%, exactly whatever proportion that they elect to have. There's the know and the unknown, the ignorant and the enlightened, the Illuminati and the ones that live in darkness. And that's just, it's the way it is here. Why wouldn't it be the way it is out there? It's the way it is for humanity. Why wouldn't it be the way for aliens? In my experience with extraterrestrials, and like I said, my experience goes even way deeper because contact, communication, cohabitation, living on the astral realm, etc. Most alien species don't know humans exist. Do not know humans exist. They are just like us, where they speculate, like you said, they speculate what's over there. I wonder if
you think there's some over there talking on a podcast right now.
No, exactly. Like when we make contact with them as human beings, when we're making contact with them, we make contact with them in select groups of their elect officials that keep that secret amongst themselves. And it's odd and it's ironic, but that it seems to be how it goes. Like if Star Trek, if Captain Kirk, etc., would land on a planet, they can't tell everybody they exist. They have to be kept secret. You know what? No, we've been talking for a long time. We got carried away in the conversation and everything. But no, I think
this was awesome.
As above, so below. That saying, as above, so below, that they behave like us. That they have to. Like, that's just because we're not special. They're not special. There must be some commonality, right, between intelligent species, that there will always be a very occult, small elite group that have secrets, and the majority of the population that is kept in out of the loop, that is kept, drip fed disclosure, as that group controls them with this secret knowledge. And that secret knowledge most times is the existence of extraterrestrials or other species or divine energy beings and fields of energy, etc. Absolutely. So as above, so below on that one, I believe like that everywhere is the same. So yeah.
Dude, this was a banger. This was a lot of fun. Dude, we covered a lot of ground, and we're just going to have to do a part 4 and beyond because we just have too much fun and we keep going. So let's do it, man. I definitely want, let's plan a spooky episode for closer to Halloween. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no problem. Exactly. If you want to talk about different hauntings and spirits and the different like implications, attacks on people, etc., definitely I'd be so into that. Yeah, different spiritual societies, cases. Definitely, let's set it up. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for having me on to speak about these occult metaphysical things, secret societies.
I love it.
So if I could just do a quick shout out, Beyond Top Secret Texan, follow me on Linktree/Beyond Top Secret Texan while you can on my social media. Shadow banned for life, having channels taken off left and right, but so far you can keep up to the minute notifications, uploads, dark web evidence, as well as podcast episodes through all my links on Linktree/Beyond Top Secret Texan. Been a pleasure, been an honor to be back. So thank you again for inviting me. Have a good one.
Thank you, brother.
No problem.